No other fact. And the future partnerships. Council, is there any declaration of, we're getting a little feedback here, so we'll try to solve the technical difficulty. And perhaps we've got that problem pretty well solved. And the chair will ask one more time, despite the technical difficulties, we'll have to get the business of the municipality done. Is there any conflict of interest, council? I see none. Then we can move on and perhaps mute our devices. Number 3 is the official plan review. It's a statutory public meeting. We are legislated to have this, and we're very pleased to have a presentation from Monteith Brown Planning Consultants. Gentlemen, the floor is yours. I know you'll want to give a visual presentation as well. We welcome you again, and please, the chair allows you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first, I'd like to welcome everyone to this statutory public meeting here today for the official plan review. Just some housekeeping items. Please mute your microphone unless you're speaking. And should you have any questions or comments, please raise your hand before you speak. So the purpose of the meeting here today is to provide an update to council and the public on the current status of the official plan review, as well as discuss the findings, sort of the background research and the process to date in terms of the policies that are recommended to be modified and update, as well as answer questions from council and the public on the current policy, proposed policies, as well as next steps for the official plan review. Just bear with me for a moment, just the screen to stop sharing. To continue in terms of the process so far, we're currently at the statutory public meeting phase of the process. And so previously had meetings with the council workshop in July and the special council meeting in June to sort of begin and explore the proposed changes to the official plan. And after the meeting today, we're moving towards the adoption of the official plan amendment by Southwest Middlesex Council, as well as final approval by the County of Middlesex. In terms of next slides, we'll provide an overview of proposed amendments to the official plan. And just note that this does not represent every single change in the document, but just the overall themes that have been amended. To begin, as part of the updates to the PPS 2020, there were additional criteria that were implemented as part of settlement area expansions during a comprehensive review. And this includes criteria to ensure that lands can be adequately serviced, as well as ensuring that the primary agricultural lands are protected, and also that minimum distance separation compliance is demonstrated through any kind of settlement area boundary expansion. Additionally, the PPS 2020 also provides the ability for municipalities to adjust their settlement boundaries outside of the comprehensive review, subject to certain criteria. And so it's recommended that these policies be introduced, as well as specific criteria under the provincial policy statement that includes ensuring that there's no net increase in land within a settlement area, as well as ensuring that lands are appropriately serviced and agricultural lands are protected. Additionally, affordable housing was included as a matter of provincial interest. And so accordingly, the official plan will be updated to include this as part of the official plan, as well as reference affordable housing in terms of the goals and objectives within urban and rural areas. Additionally, the official plan would enact policies that require municipalities to allow for the establishment of what are called additional residential units. And so these would allow for additional residential units to be located within a primary dwelling, as well as an accessory structure for a total of up to 3 dwelling units on a property. And these units would also be subject to various criteria relating to ensuring that there's adequate servicing and parking, establishing a maximum floor area requirements to ensure that these units do remain accessory to the primary dwelling. In addition, ensure that additional residential units are located outside of natural heritage or hazard areas. And finally, for agricultural areas, ensuring that these units are MDS compliant, located within the building cluster, and cannot be severed from the remainder of the property. In terms of temporary garden suites have been amended under the Planning Act. They're now permitted for up to a period of 10 years or up to 20 years, where they were previously limited to 10 years. In addition, criteria has been added for the establishment of garden suites, which includes policies on locating them close to the primary dwelling, ensuring they're adequately serviced, and also are zoning compliant. Additionally, the official plan amendment would include updates to reflect new 2021 census information, as well as reflect county growth projections for the municipality over the long term. In terms of changes to agricultural and rural policies, the PPS 2020 included direction that primary agriculture areas include on-farm diversified uses as a permitted use. And these would be subject to certain criteria, such as ensuring that these are secondary to the prime agricultural uses on farm operation, ensuring that they're zoning compliant, would not have any negative impacts on surrounding agricultural uses, and also have adequate servicing on the property. And it's also recommended that these uses be evaluated in consultation with provincial guidelines for permitted uses in prime agricultural areas. Provincial policies also permit lot adjustments for agricultural lands for legal and technical reasons. And so these policies have been included as part of the draft official plan amendment. And additionally, also policies regarding surplus farm dwelling severances have been updated in accordance with county and provincial policies that would include a 10-year period that would require dwellings to be existed for 10 years, as opposed to being existing prior to 1999, which is what the current policies require, as well as ensuring that the lot is of minimum size to preserve as much agricultural land as possible. Additionally, the topic of biosolids was raised at previous meetings, and so county staff have directed that these policies being added to the official plan amendment that would speak to regulating biosolids. And these policies would be in conformity with policies that are currently under the county official plan. And additionally, in consultation with staff, the county official plan proposes to permit both temporary and permanent accommodations for farm labor. And so a section has been added or modified within the official plan amendment that would allow for permanent farm labor accommodations to be established, subject to certain criteria, including demonstrating that the farm operation is in need of permanent accommodations for farm labor, as well as ensuring adequate servicing and that minimum distance separation is met. And finally, the commercial wind energy policies of the official plan have been removed and replaced, or proposed to be removed and replaced with policies from the county official plan. And the intent of that is to ensure that the policies are all in conformity with the upper tier. The proposed modifications to minimum distance separation policies of the official plan. The minimum distance separation guidelines that are released by the province, the entire Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, allow for cemeteries that are closed or do not have a place of worship to be considered a type A land use. And a type A land use is a less sensitive use and therefore would have a reduced setback requirement. And so policies have been proposed within the official plan amendment that would permit certain exemptions for cemeteries that have been identified to meet these criteria. Additionally, there are proposed policies that would permit exemptions from MDS 1 setbacks on existing lots or lots that are existing prior to March 1st, 2017. And the official plan would permit these sort of MDS setbacks to be exempt within the zoning bylaw, and we anticipate that the zoning bylaw would need to be amended in order to implement these policies further. In terms of employment and industry policies, the PPS 2020 included an update to permit the conversion of employment lands outside of a comprehensive review. And this just refers to lands that are designated within official plan for the purposes of industrial uses. And so the policies would allow for the conversion to say residential uses, for example, provided certain criteria are met, including that there is a demonstrated need for the conversion, as well as ensuring that there would be no negative impacts to surrounding either sensitive land uses or existing and future industrial uses. Parkland dedication rates are proposed to be amended as part of the official plan review process to address changes to the Planning Act that allow for alternative cash in lieu of parkland rates, in this case about 1 hectare per 500 dwelling units, as in accordance with parkland dedication policies under the Planning Act. And additionally, as part of the municipality's facilities and recreation master plan, there are recommendations for ensuring that parkland that is dedicated is suitable for the purposes of being functional for parkland and the community. And so as a result, policies are proposed to be included that would ensure that there would be adequate size and frontage of lands to be dedicated, as well as ensure that there is exclusion of environmentally sensitive lands, except in cases where an over-dedication of parkland is provided, and ensuring that stormwater facilities will also not be accepted as part of parkland calculations. The resource policies, while the municipality is considered to have no known deposits of aggregate materials that be viable for extraction, the current official plan does contain policies that do regulate aggregate uses. And also these policies will need to be in conformity with provincial requirements. And so it's proposed that a policy be introduced that would ensure that extraction in prime agriculture areas would be permitted, provided that sites are rehabilitated back to prime agricultural uses. For natural heritage policies, the Planning Act now requires climate change to be considered as a matter of provincial interest. And so policies are recommended to be included as part of the official plan amendment that would promote addressing climate change through development. In addition, the recommendations from the Middlesex Natural Heritage System study that have been recommended to be implemented as part of the official plan review, and these including changes for the assessment of natural heritage features through the development assessment reports, as well as reference to this document for the evaluation of natural heritage features within the municipality. Currently, the official plan contains policies regarding a special development area along Krista Lane, including several undeveloped lots. It has undeveloped lots lie within the provincially significant Thompson wetland. Any development requires the approval of the Lower Thames Conservation Authority, and as such, there were recommended updates to requirements for development agreements for development in this area, and so the official plan is recommended to be updated to reflect these proposed changes to ensure that development does not negatively impact natural heritage features. And then onto some general policy changes. One being matters of provincial interest were revised under the Planning Act, and so these have been proposed to be updated in the official plan, and these include references to affordable housing, built form, sustainable development, and also encouraging pedestrian-oriented development. And additionally, references to active transportation in accordance with the provincial policy statement and county official plan that would introduce policies to encourage and promote active transportation, as well as define what it is. The official plan would also propose policies for outlining potential requirements for development application submissions, and this would provide more clarity to landowners and developers of what may be required as part of an application submission, as well as including policies that would require applicants to pre-consult with the municipality prior to submission. Again, the intent of that policy is to provide more information to applicants before development applications are submitted. Additionally, they propose changes to amend the policies for site plan control. This including accessibility including that accessibility be addressed through development applications as required under the Planning Act. Additionally, policies are recommended to be included as part of the official plan review that would implement recommendations of the Source Water Protection Background Report. And these include strengthening policies and wording to identify and protect surface and groundwater resources. And policies are also proposed to amend in the community improvement section of the official plan that would reference encouraging and supporting agritourism, as well as affordable housing in keeping with the municipality's community improvement plan. And so as part of the official plan review, there are some further policies that have been identified as being outdated. And so these include landfill and brownfill sites. Proposals are changed to update wording to reflect closure of landfills that have taken place, as well as requirements for these sites for the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks. Additionally, the proposed removal of the grain handling facility section of the official plan due to those policies no longer being applicable. In addition, there have been some public and agency comments that have been received during the consultation process, and these include the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority, as well as the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority. And overall, these include mainly changes to the proposed references to provincial ministries, as well as various agencies, as well as updates to significant wildlife habitat policies, ensuring that they are assessed through development assessment reports and ensuring that there are no negative impacts on these features as a result of new development, as well as updating policies regarding adjacent lands, which are lands within 120 meters of significant natural heritage features, and outlining requirements to ensure that no negative impacts are result as due to new development and development applications. So staff have reviewed these comments and have no concerns, and so recommend that these requested policy wording be included in the final bylaw for council's adoption. In terms of next steps for the process, so further review any comments and feedback at the meeting today, including receive direction from council on the proposed policy changes, after the meeting here today, should be able to be addressed, we would move towards finalizing a bylaw for adoption of the official plan amendment that would come back before Southwest Middlesex Council, as well as if approved, I would proceed forward to the Middlesex County decision. Again, information will continue to be provided on the municipal website for the remainder of the official plan review process, as well as resources are available for the process that has occurred to date. And that concludes my presentation at this time. I'm happy to take questions from members of council or the public.
Eric, thank you very much for walking us through that. The proposed policy amendments to the official plan have been condensed and verbally, and it's a very understandable report. And we are now at the opportunity to ask questions from the public and to council. Eric, we thank you for that presentation, and you stay with us, and I'll make the invitation for questions to be directed through the chair to you. Council, any questions at all? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Bartlett.
Through you, Mayor, to Eric. I know you touched on this, Eric, but can you explain again the change of cemeteries to a type A as opposed to what we have now?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. So currently, the province's MDS guidelines, which are their minimum distance separation guidelines, and these guidelines provide direction for how setbacks are to be applied between various uses and agricultural operations. And so there are two types of land uses: type A land uses, which are less sensitive and therefore would have a smaller setback to between agricultural operations such as livestock barns and various uses. And then there are type B land uses, which are more sensitive and therefore would have a greater setback. And so changes to the MDS guidelines now allow for cemeteries that either closed or do not have a place of worship located on them to be a type A land use, since there would be a less likelihood of people visiting or being present there. And so it's recommended that policies be included in the official plan to allow for this exemption and for these types of cemeteries to be considered a type A land use.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Any further questions? Eric, perhaps I can lead off with two. Oh, did I miss one? Did I miss your Mark? Did you have your hand up? Yeah. Go ahead, Mark. Oh, Martin. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, Eric, I'd like to know a little bit more about source water protection. That's a big issue in the rural areas. Are the regulations going to be tougher, or possibly conservation authorities can come on your property and check things out?
You, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you said policies are tougher. The proposed policies are recommended that would provide more direction and encouragement for ensuring that groundwater resources are protected and identified properly. And I believe the conservation has commented that there are policies and source water protection plans in place for the municipality. So the overall, I wouldn't say that these are more restrictive per se, or would allow staff to stop development necessarily, but it ensures that if development does take place, that groundwater resources are encouraged to be protected and preserved.
Thank you, Councillor Vink. Eric, just to elaborate a little more on that, groundwater protection is exceptionally important, but in that protection of water, with the Thames River, which is in Southwest Middlesex, lies on our boundaries. With that, that would formulate part of the water protection as well. Focus, would it? The Thames River system. To
Mr. Mayor, typically source water protection guess the policies and official plan don't specifically address the Thames River specifically. However, they would generally promote and encourage the identification and protection of surface and groundwater resources. And so as part of that, there would be potentially consideration for impacts to the system as a whole, but don't specifically reference Thames River specifically. It would be more of it speaks to surface and groundwater resources in a general manner.
Yes, it was designation as a historic river. I wondered where it lied in importance. Council, please take any other questions. Watch your hands. Councilor Scholdeis, please ask through the chair.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Considering that our proposed developments are on the edges of Glencoe, will changes to the settlement boundaries to the built-up areas, will it have any effect on those developments?
Through Mr. Merrick, I'm sorry, you cut out there momentarily. Will you be able to repeat your question, please?
Hear me or not? Considering that the developments in Glencoe are on the edges of town, changes to the built-up areas boundaries, will there be any effect on those developments with any of these changes?
Through Mr. Mayor, so in terms of new development, as part of this official plan review, there are no proposed changes to the settlement boundaries. The policies that are proposed to be modified would deal more with future expansions of settlement area. So it would establish criteria that would ensure that land that would be as part of the settlement area, would have regard for ensuring that agricultural operations wouldn't be impacted, would meet minimum distance separation requirements, and can be adequately serviced, but wouldn't necessarily affect ongoing or current development that's taking place. So they wouldn't specifically affect current development, but would have address changes to settlement boundary at the time of comprehensive review.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Martin, I have to watch your hand. Krista, do you have a question? Nope, you're okay. Eric, one more, if you would, please. You mentioned the policy introduction on biosolids, and it is now recognized as Normal Farm Practice Act, but the official plan will primarily look at the storage aspects of that. Is that correct? Like, must these be contained away from the heavy rains and things of that nature? Could you elaborate on how the revisions on this plan target that topic of biosolids?
To Mr. Mayor, answer your question, the policies are proposed come with the direction of municipal staff, and they would implement identical wording and policies that have been implemented as part of the county official plan review process. And it speaks to references that the application of biosolids is regulated by the province and in various provincial acts and takes place in accordance with those acts, and directs that the storage of biosolids is stored in a manner that ensures the protection of surrounding properties, water courses, and environmental features. So those are the proposed policies that be included as part of the official plan amendment.
Yeah, thank you. That clarifies that. Last call for questions. Seeing none, Eric, you have brought us, I think, to step 4 of 6 steps in this journey. And council are now at a point where direction from council on the proposed policy changes and the preparation of the draft bylaw for consideration of adoption at a future meeting of council. So council, thank you for your presentation. The ball is now in our court. Council, there is a recommendation before us that is part of the process of adopting this plan, that the official plan review presentation from Monteith Brown Planning Consultants is received as information, and that staff be directed to prepare an official plan bylaw for council's consideration. That includes all staff and agency comments received to date. Council, if you're satisfied with the presentation, if you have no more questions to Eric, that is the next step in this journey for us to give the endorsement of council on this. Is there anyone that would move that? Moved by Councillor Scholdice. Is there a seconder? Councillor Choi. Discussion before I call the question. All in favor of the recommendations that have been presented to council, please raise your hand. All opposed? Carried. Well, Eric, I don't know whether your shoulders feel any lighter after that vote or not, but yeah, your work's not done. I know that you have some fine tuning to do. And again, we want not only to thank you, but the people behind you. I know Jay McGuffin is there, of course, and and Todd Brown, no doubt too, somewhere around here. And we want to thank you again, and we look forward to receiving that bylaw for council's consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council, we're at number 4 on the agenda. We might get time for a bit to eat before we have that 7 o'clock meeting. The bylaws is before you, that the official plan review statute meeting, or I'm sorry, the confirmatory bylaw for the special meeting on August 24th, you read for a first, second, and third time and adopted. Is there a motion to move the confirmatory bylaw? Councillor Cowell, Councillor Bartlett, all in favor? It is carried. And I will call adjournment at 4:37.